Hey everyone, my name is Emily Farron, and I'm the Director of Recruitment for the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. Today, we are going to go over some interview preparation for your JVC interview with your site placements. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to share my screen, and we can go over all the information that you'll need in order to be successful. So first, let's go through agency expectations. So one thing I want you to know here is that our agencies do not expect you to be perfect for what you are interviewing for. If you are interviewing for a legal aid position, a medical assistant position, maybe you're interviewing for someone who's going to do case management, they understand you are very new to this. Whether you have been out of school for maybe a year or two, or you are just graduating, they absolutely understand that this is a program in which they are getting early talent that have maybe not worked or not worked long in the career in which that they are going to be working in. So, or in the positions they've been working in. So our agencies are really assessing for fit. They are looking, are you going to be a good team player? Are you going to work well with the rest of the group here? Are you ready to work? Are you ready to be professional and work in a professional environment? Whether that is answering phones, sending emails, working with clients, working with partners that they maybe work with at their agency. So those are all really important things to them. These are things they tell us. So when it comes to what agencies are looking for, these are things they tell us. And these are things that come out of interviews with past potential volunteers that they have seen. So first, timely and clear communication. So that comes down to when you are scheduling your interviews, are you getting back to them in a timely manner? I know that this year there is a lot of weather issues and maybe some power issues. So there is a little bit of room for flexibility, but still, they want to make sure that you're scheduling your interviews on time, that when they are reaching out to you, you have appropriate voicemail, that you have an appropriate email etiquette. I call a lot of people as a recruiter. I've been recruiting for about 10 years. And as someone who calls folks, I still get that, voicemail every once in a while. Hey, hello? Hi, I can't hear you. Just kidding. Leave a message when you have a chance. See ya. Maybe an example of email etiquette that's not so great. Same with somehow ways that folks sign off of that's voicemail etiquette. That's not so great. Email etiquette might be ways in which you sign off your emails. Maybe you're not even signing off on your emails. So again, things to be aware of, maybe time to set up a professional email as well as a professional email signature. If you are not able to make it, if you are sick or you are delayed, maybe you got the time zones wrong, which it absolutely happens, but please, please, please schedule accordingly. Make sure that if you are on the East Coast, interviewing on the West Coast, you are there at the right time, or vice versa. Midwest folks, I know that we also need to make sure that if we're interviewing on either side of the country, that we are adapting. So if you are sick or delayed, let them know ahead of time. Give them plenty of notice. And similarly with time zones, make sure you are adjusting your time zones in order to make it. Just do a quick Google, make sure that you are ready to do that. Even confirming with, hey, I know that you said this is going to be at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Just wanted to confirm that's 8 a.m. for me here in Chicago. I just want to make sure to schedule it in my calendar appropriately. They'll appreciate it. Also, preparedness and follow through. So we'll talk about this in a minute, but make sure you're researching the agency. You know what the role is in advance. You know the population that you're going to be working with. Make sure that you're genuinely interested in the population and the types of work that it does. So if you really want to work with your hands, or you really want to work out in a community and maybe not at a desk as much, make sure that you know that what the role is and that you aren't going to be interviewing for a position where you're mostly going to be working at a desk. As well as preparing for your agency interviews, you also want to practice your interview skills. I'm going to run through a couple of things today that I hope will be really helpful to you all. But you also have career centers on campus. You have friends and family. You should all hopefully have a mirror somewhere. So even just practicing in front of the mirror, if you don't have anyone to interview with, that's great. Sometimes you just need to practice some of these scripts, practice saying things over and over, practice, your why or your pitch. Always really good to just try and if you're able to do all that. Next, professional conduct. So are you showing up on time? I know that a lot of these different agencies might do a Zoom interview. So are you logged in a little bit early? It's okay to be a couple minutes early. They might not be ready yet, but that means that they're going to let you in a timely manner. So you definitely want to be able to show up a little bit early if you can, or right on time. Try not to be late. If you are delayed, again, let them know. Um, Also, if you are going to be answering the phone at all, or if you are, meeting with them for the first time, you do want to be professional from that moment that that Zoom pops up or that phone gets answered. Hello, this is Emily. And then let them go from there. Remembering you don't have to do that on Zoom, so please don't do that on Zoom. Only if you're answering the phone. And again, make sure that this is commitment to an interview. Don't be late. Don't skip it. These things do happen, and that's why we bring them up. And then lastly, these all these placements are committed to social justice in some way or fashion through the work that they do. So they do want to make sure that you are committed to working for social justice. All right. So before the interview, that is where we're going to start. It's really important that you prep before the interview. Sometimes you are prepping for days and for some jobs, even weeks before you even interview with these folks. And so really try to dive into this if you can. If you have a few hours, great. But I also like to prep a day or two before just so I can practice, saying things that I see on their website or talking about things that I see on their website, saying my pitch. So what does preparedness look like when you are prepping for that? So first, do your research. What is the role and what are the day-to-day responsibilities? You know them. I would also scan through the job description, maybe scan through the website. It's great to look at someone's website. Who are they? When were they founded? What types of work do they do? What types of clients do they serve? Maybe you see somebody from the team and you can look at some people, the team, their bios are there. A lot of them, when it comes to the meet the teams or who we are, go ahead and read through those. Maybe you can make a connection with somebody of oh gosh, they went to the same school I did, or they love dogs. I love dogs. That's fantastic. I wonder if they own a dog. I should ask. Things of that nature. So really do your research. A lot of that can be done on their LinkedIn, maybe their Instagram profiles, if you can go pretty deep there. Maybe it's their website. So really try to figure out who these organizations are serving, what types of roles there are, what types of populations you'll be working with while you were there, who are maybe going to be your coworkers, right? These could be your coworkers in a year, which is really cool to see what connections you can do and build out from there. So do your research. Again, sometimes this takes time. Maybe you want to scrap a few notes down about things that you saw on the website. Maybe it even leads to some questions that you have for them at the end of it all. All right. Another great thing to do is prepare your why or your pitch. So I come from a background of recruiting and I have worked in some career centers, but I've also done a lot of interviews and I've worked with a lot of early career folks. So folks that are about 22 to 26, looking for that first role or second role after they graduate from undergrad, a master's program, a PhD, or MD program. Those are all the types of interviews that I've done. So very important for you to come in with a why, if you want to call it that, or if you want to call it a pitch. So this is typically between 60 to 90 seconds. If it gets to 2 minutes, you're edging on the time of being just a little bit too long. But again, if you can get all that in there, great. So this is a great thing to have in your back pocket of tell me a little bit about yourself or tell us who you are. Sometimes this can even be seen as, kind of walk me through your resume. A lot of you don't have a lot built into your resume yet. And so you could also use this and really reframe it in a really cool way, depending on how much you want to do. So when you cover this, you want to go over who you are. This could be where you came from, what school you went to, where you studied, maybe activities you've been involved with. The further out you get from undergrad, the further out that you get from, maybe 1 or 2 experiences, the more you'll have to say for this. You could then talk about what led you to JVC, or specifically would be great, why you're interested in this site or this role. And then lastly, close out with what do you hope to learn or what experiences do you hope to gain? I'm going to give you an example. Oh, that's a great question. Hi, so my name is Emily. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I went to John Carroll University for undergrad, and I studied psychology. I was really involved with some service work while I was there. I did a lot of immersion trips. I even led one. And I was also really involved with my sorority, and I was on the Panhellenic Council. I was really drawn to JVC because I really wanted to do service after I graduated from John Carroll, but really wanted to live in an intentional community where I could really live with folks who were living out that faith that does justice in real time, and have dinners together and talk about it and bring things home together. I'm especially drawn to the job with Lazarus Health, because I really want to work with migrant populations. I really want to do legal advocacy. I'm a little bit interested in, maybe law school down the road, but who knows? But I really also really appreciate some of the reentry services that you all have. I think that you really are doing this really cool thing in Kansas City, to really get to know the populations that you're working with, to really provide some really cool and wonderful care. And I'm just really drawn to it. After JVC and through this experience, I'm not sure where things will bring me. I'm kind of unsure of like where my career path is. But I do want to grow in some skills that, I see like case management. And so I was really interested in being a case manager with you all. But I also want to build, meaningful relationships across differences, maybe even broaden my understanding of like what some of the social barriers and systematic barriers are to justice, especially in Kansas City. So that's kind of, who I am and, what I've done and like where I'd like to go. Boom. That hopefully answered some of those questions. Maybe you want to go to medical school. So you want to talk about how in Cleveland you want to work with, neighborhood family practice and do things with them. And you want to talk about how that specifically ties back to understanding social determinants of health in people's lives so you can prepare for med school better. Maybe you want to do more with, again, I talked a little bit about some legal aid stuff. Maybe you want to talk more about legal aid. Maybe you are a big fan of what Father Greg Boyle is doing in LA and you want to talk specifically about, being a case manager for some of those folks that are reentering society after being incarcerated. A lot of these different things you can pull and talk about, when you are talking about this and talking about where you want to go, what you want to learn, how you want to tie it into your future, but also, make sure to talk about your past, talk about all the cool things that you've done. If you listen to my little spiel, that was about 90 seconds, if not a little bit more. And so maybe you started to, stop listening. Maybe you had to pause it because you're like, okay, Emily, this is really boring. I need a minute. So just think about, put yourself in the shoes of the interviewer. They are asking these questions and they do really want to learn about you. But, an answer should be, 90 seconds to maybe 2 minutes when talking about things. And so really try to adapt that script for yourself. Practice this in front of the mirror. I wrote this down about 5 minutes before, so I haven't really gone over it too much. But with more practice, you can see how it can really become something that just feels really natural for you to talk about. All right. Another thing that would be great is if you practice how you're going to answer stories type situations when it comes to those questions that you'll get. So there's going to be questions, I think one of the most popular questions that you could get asked is talk about, some of the things that you're really good at and maybe the things you struggle with. Or if a supervisor or friend were to tell me something about you, what would they say that you do really well? Right. So maybe have a list going, maybe 2 to 3 things I think is sufficient of things that you feel like you are a rock star in. I'm really organized. I'm really good at communication. I'm really good with people. I'm really great in interpersonal skills. 2 to 3 questions or 2 to 3 answers to maybe things you're really good at. And then maybe like, where do you struggle a bit? And it's okay to be honest. We all have different struggles and these placements know that you are not perfect because none of us are. And so where do you struggle? Maybe I struggle a little bit with time management. Maybe I struggle a little bit with writing my heart in my sleeve. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day, like everyone around me knows it because I have a hard time like keeping that in, but I'm working on it. And it's, I've been able to adapt and change it. And you can always turn that into a positive. Calling yourself a perfectionist sometimes doesn't, land as well as we think it does. So, work with somebody, figure out maybe what some of those things are that you need to work on, whether it is communication, or maybe you are really shy and introverted and you need a little help coming out of your shell. All these things that we need to work on can also be turned into strengths. They can be turned into positives down the road. And I think it's just really good to know what those might look like because it shows a little bit more self-awareness for yourself. Again, this could be a question of tell me what you think are your strengths and weaknesses, but also what would a roommate say that you do really well? What would a supervisor say that you struggle in? Very common things and just good to know and self-awareness, good ways to answer. But in addition to that, you're also going to have to tell some storytelling. You're also going to have to talk about times when things did not go well, times when you struggled, times that you overcame a really big obstacle. And so ways to prepare for some of those questions is going to be through the STAR method. So as I mentioned, I did use to work in career services. And so this is a big thing that we would use is the STAR method. It's a common way to structure an answer for you all when a question comes up about tell me about a time or tell me about a situation. And it's a very easy way to kind of structure this. And what I would recommend is having a little, scratch pad, write these down now if you can think of them, or even have it sitting by you during the interview. It's okay to look down every now and then. Nobody should be staring at the screen. And so it's a great way to walk through what this might look like. So S for STAR, situation. What was the situation, problem, or maybe even been an opportunity? Maybe it was even the assignment if you were talking about a group project that went really well or super awry. T, task. What was your role? What were your responsibilities in all of this? Actions. What actions did you take? What actions did the group take? What actions did the leadership team take? Things of that nature. And then R, result. How did it end? What was the impact, right? And then if you really want to show like some really cool opportunities here, I would also recommend it an L. We call it the STAR L method in business school. But L stands for learning. So what did you learn? What's really cool about adding on the L is it's going to show them that you have thought about what this outcome was. It's going to show them that you thought about not only did it end in a result, but it also ended with me learning something about myself or learning something about working on the team, learning about what I could do better next time. So it shows a lot of self-awareness. So let's think of the question. Tell me about a time when you overcame an obstacle. Okay. Tell me about a time you overcame an obstacle. I want you to think for a second what your S, what was the situation? T, what was your task? What was your responsibility? What was your role? What was the action? What was the result? And what did you learn? Okay. You might be thinking about this already. Maybe you thought about it, but you're like, oh, I'm not sure how to like go into each category and write down. That's okay. Again, this is why you are practicing so that you don't get asked this question on the spot and not have an answer. So let me think. Oh, okay. Situation. My senior year, I had a full course load. I had, 5 classes. There's a lot going on. But I was also on the board to help with Labra, which is a weekly service program that went out and helped folks experiencing homelessness. We would, sit with them, talk with them, build community, also take them, sandwiches, hot chocolate, coffee, some kind of warm beverage if we could, or in the summer, cold beverage. And that's what I did. Situation. Task. During that time, we had a lot of members studying abroad. And so a lot of the people that typically helped out weren't able to help out. And we had to recruit new members. And we were having a really hard time recruiting. We were reaching out, I'm going into my action really quickly. So action. We reached out to our members who were currently involved, who are still on campus. Not all of them could help. We set up a table in the student center, thought we could maybe recruit a few new members. We recruited some, but it wasn't enough to really have a full schedule. And so what we had to do was we had to change adapt. We had to adapt our schedule and change our schedule to go every other week instead of every week, just for the semester. It was really tough because we just felt like we were letting our partner down. We were letting our community down. We were letting those folks down. But it was something that me and the leadership team, working with our campus staff member, we just had to do. Boom. Result, we changed our schedule, changed a little bit, but we were still able to go back every other week. Okay. So that was a situation that didn't go well, right? I could have also gone back in if maybe the situation was different and the action could have been, we recruited new members. We recruited enough that the result changed. We were able to, work weekly. We were able to get everyone scheduled. We were able to get a little bit of a bump of folks that would only do once a month to do like twice a month. So that could have been a different result as well. But again, you could see how this could change very easily. And then my learning. And I think for both of these examples, the learning could easily be, I learned how important it is to be flexible, how important it is to be really communicative, how important it is to bring in people like my team or my staff member at the university to help balance some of those responsibilities. There's a help when things, maybe go a little bit sideways. It's really important to delegate. So what else could I have learned? So if you break that situation down and what kind of happened, again, it could have been a really positive result. We got enough people, woohoo, Labra could continue. Or we didn't get enough people, we just had to change things up a little bit. Still a really good outcome in that we were getting services out every other week, just had to do every other week for the semester because of the the participants. So again, situation, task, action, result, learning. Learning always helps because it shows how you learn from the situation. So what are some of these other common questions that you might get that could just be helpful to start thinking about? So here's a few. If you need to pause this to look at this, great. All right. So let's take a look at some of the interview questions that you might get where you can use that STAR L method. I'm also going to include maybe some things you can think about in terms of how you would answer this because of what they are looking for. So first, can you tell me about a time when you had to juggle multiple responsibilities or commitments? So they're really looking here, time management, reliability, maybe even some self-awareness, but especially that time management piece. So they want to know, can you manage a caseload of, four folks a day if you're going to be a case manager, but also answer the phones on Tuesdays, but also plan an event for alumni on Thursdays. They want to see, are you aware enough of what you can handle? Are you able to pull back if you need to, or are you able to juggle all these commitments? There are no wrong answers here when you are talking about what you've learned and what you've been experiencing. Sometimes this might be, if you are over involved on campus, a lot of you are super high achievers. So you might be involved in more things on campus. This could even be, I took on an 18 credit hours and it was really tough. And, I was also a student athlete, or I was also involved with this organization. And so how can you give examples of what that looks like so it shows how you manage your time? Another one is, tell me about a time that something did not go as planned. As you heard in my last slide, maybe that was an example of like we had to adapt, we had to change, things cannot be perfect. As someone who really likes things to go well and go, as perfect as I can possibly make them, it's never going to go perfect. And so how can you adapt? How can you change? So maybe that is when you maybe plan an event that did not go well, or maybe it was a group project that didn't go well. Maybe this was something that you were volunteering with, and everything went sideways because, the bus was late or somebody canceled last minute, things of that nature. So again, they're looking for how did you adapt in the moment? So think about a time when maybe it was really stressful for you and you're like, I can't believe I did that. This is a great time to share it. Another question is, can you describe a time that when you worked with people who maybe had different perspectives or backgrounds as you, they're just figuring out, how do you work with others? How do you adapt to yourself to work with others? How good of a teammate are you? So this could also come up as, tell me a time that you worked on a group project or and you had different differences. Have you ever worked a part of a team? So group projects are great. Working, maybe you are in a leadership team of some sort. Maybe you did an immersion trip or a service group and you had to go together. And you had to have, you had to debrief and maybe you didn't get along with everyone. That's okay. This is a time in which you could share those situations and talk about what you learned. As much as you can focus, especially on this question, on what you learned, what happened with you and not other people, not saying, oh, this is why I didn't get along with them because they were this, they were that. That's not going to fly. Make sure that when you were talking about it, you're talking from your perspective. I struggled to get along with this person, but, we had to live together for 6 more months. So, these are steps that I took in order to, move along from our differences. So again, learning, what did you learn? Not so much specifically pointing any blame. And then again, tell me about, this could be another one I think we just talked about. Tell me about a time you faced a challenge or conflict and how you handled it. They're just looking for how you overcame it. So there are no perfect steps to solving conflict or a challenge. It is all about how you get through it, the actions that you take, the results. The result sometimes is not the result that we are looking for. And so how can you truly adapt yourself to solving this? And again, that L at the end, the star L, the learning. All of these things are great, especially if you tie back what you learned, you tie back, ways in which you have matured through it or you've gotten through it because of what you learned and how you will handle things differently in the past. I think, as I mentioned, one of those major pieces that the major questions I always get asked or answered, whether I'm interviewing myself or I am interviewing others is, what would people say about you? Or, what are things you need to work on? Always treating that into learning of, this is something that I really struggle with is time management. It's something that in this actual current role or in this current position or in my current day-to-day life, I'm working on. And here's a skill that I've learned to help with time management. And one of it is a to-do list. It's really helped me a lot, adjust and get better at time management, but it's still something I'm working on. So even with those different changes and opportunities, when it comes to how you can change up the question, definitely a really great to end in the positive. All right, so day of the interview, what can you do? Make sure that you have a limited distraction. If you can be in a room by yourself, that is the best way to go, especially if it has great internet, because it will make sure the attention is on you and only you, whether this is a phone screen or it is in person. You want to be able to show up in a professional way. If you are, have your background on, you can have your background on, make sure it's not too distracting. So if there's crazy posters or even inappropriate posters or posters that just might not jive well with social justice, Just think about what that might look like. Maybe you blur your background, maybe you take them down and you are just in front of a white or, empty space, doesn't have to be white. That's always great. Make sure that, again, you have good internet, that it's quiet. If you need to close a door, go in a closet. I have taken interviews from closets before, walk-in closets or even just small spaces, because it was the only place to go to kind of have that zero distraction place. They don't see anything around you. They only see you in the background. So however that works best for you, as long as you're comfortable. I'd also encourage you to have a notepad, even sticky notes nearby. It's a little bit harder when you're typing something on your computer because sometimes people can see those fingers going back and forth, but having something down, also writing it down, it's something that will impress the site placements, because they're seeing that you are engaged. They're seeing that you're writing things down, that you're thinking critically about what this could look like. So even if you have, you have a pen next to you, it's great. If at all you get stumped, or if at all you need to pause or take a sip of water, name it. I think we all know that we're all people of great needs. And so sometimes you just need to say, excuse me, can I just pause for 1 minute? I'm going to just have a sip of water. Absolutely okay. If you are not feeling well and you still took the interview, maybe have something next to you to say, hey, I'm going to pause. I'm going to mute you for a minute and turn my camera off. I really have to blow my nose. I do apologize, but I will be back in, 5 seconds. As long as it's not running to the bathroom and things like that you should not be doing at all. But yeah. Another time to pause is when they ask you a question. You are like, oh goodness, I need to gather my thoughts. You could say, wow, what a great question. I might need a minute to think about this. Take 10 seconds, breathe. If you have some of these situational questions or situational examples sitting next to you, awesome. You can figure out a way to navigate what that question might be. It's going to be 10 seconds. It's going to feel like 30 seconds. To them, it's only going to feel like 5. So even if you need to take a minute, that is okay. Name it in the moment. Again, we don't want you getting up and moving around and taking breaks like that. But again, if you need a sip of water, just mention it. Like, just take a quick sip of water, give me 1 minute. And then also, if you are having a video call, dress to impress. I know they cannot see you from the chest down. Doesn't matter. I think it's really important that you come to impress. Wear a top, whether that is a button up, a blouse. If you want to wear a jacket, go for it. But wear something from the hips up, I would even say, that you would wear and show up to at that job placement. And so if it is a job placement and you want to wear a flannel, okay, but just know that you are showing up professionally, dressed to impress. We want them to see you on that screen and see you working in that office. And the best way to do that is dressing like you would dress when you walk in that door the first day. All right, we're almost there. So after the interview, send a thank you note. Make sure to personalize it as much as you can. Maybe there's a small nugget that you all talked about. As you've heard throughout my presentation, I'm from Cleveland. So I love Cleveland sports. I also love football. So maybe I'm interviewing with somebody either this week or next week, and I mentioned that maybe we connected about football. Maybe they are Seahawks fan, and I want to say, oh, by the way, good luck to your team in the Super Bowl. Really going for them, really cheering for them. Maybe they are just a football fan, and you talked about, or they are not a football fan, but you talked about Super Bowl parties you're going to, and you wanted to be like, oh, by the way, I really hope that you get, all the buffalo chicken dip that your heart can stand. That's something that you talked about. Maybe you're both pet lovers and you talked about your pets and say, I'll be thinking about you. Really loved learning about or hearing about your dog, Jeff. Hope Jeff gets through winter okay in Kansas City. So any way that you can bring in a small nugget and to personalize it was great. Also personalizing about the role, reinforcing, I am so excited to work at Lazarus House. I am so excited to work at Homeboys. I am so excited to work anywhere in which you talked about. Great ways to connect to them and explain why. Let them know why you're excited, why you see yourself in the role, why you see yourself working with them. And maybe it was just, hey, after meeting you and the team, I am even more excited. I could really see us as coworkers, really hope to hear back from you soon. And then you're going to reflect on your experience. So when maybe you find this person, you send them a note, maybe it is through email, maybe it is through even LinkedIn, find them on LinkedIn, send them a note there. But then you're going to reflect. And I really want you to reflect and just to ask yourself and discern. And if you've not already watched our other series on next steps, that we go a little bit more into discernment, but discern, can you see yourself working there? Can you see yourself working with that team? Do you want the role that's open? I really want you to think critically about that, because if you say yes, that is a yes. That is a yes to that agency. That is a yes to that partner. And if you say yes, and then 6 months later you say no, that is a partner that no longer has anybody serving them. And these are populations and placements that we are providing them service because they need it, because they want us, because they, they really need, a judgment volunteer there at the end. So as you are submitting feedback to us, the agency will be submitting feedback as well. And just remind yourself that this is a mutual discernment process. And so with all that being said, they are giving us feedback, you are giving us feedback. Please be clear and firm that if this agency is right for you. That is very, very important. Be clear and be firm if this agency is right for you. If it is not, that is okay. We want to know that. But by saying yes, that means you have real interest. By saying maybe, that means you maybe have interest. So if you are deciding between two and you say yes to one, but maybe to the other, and somebody else gets that first one, that maybe is going to go to somebody that's also saying yes. And so maybe you want to say yes to both, and that's great. Maybe you want to say maybe to both, and that's okay too. But again, it is that mutual discernment process. And then this specifically is just a note that's coming from our admissions team. But when we give you that text box and we want you to say more about how you're processing, use it. I'm a processor. I need to like write things down. I need everyone to know like what I'm thinking. Just because I said yes to Lazarus House and yes to, a Boys and Girls Club after school opportunity doesn't mean I want one more than the other. Maybe it means I want to say, hey, I would say yes to Lazarus House because I like the population. I think it's cool. It seems like a really great nonprofit, but maybe I don't see myself living in Kansas City. And maybe I want to do the Boys and Girls Club because I do see myself going to Boston. I've been in the Midwest my whole life. I want to like maybe see like a different coast. And maybe I want to work with Boys and Girls Clubs. But I'm just like not sure if I maybe I want to work with kids. And so like this is like what I'm weighing is, the city's great, but maybe the population isn't, or vice versa. Or wow, I'm a huge Greg Boyle fan, and so I want to work at Homeboy Industries, but I'm not sure if I want to live in LA. Oh wait, there's other populations, there's other ways in which we can connect you with all three of those different pieces that I talked about, and maybe a different city, or maybe a different location, or maybe there is a place for you in Boston that is working more in like a legal aid spot, or maybe you really want to work with folks, coming out of incarceration. We also have other opportunities there too. So everything that you say in that text box is really going to help us figure out next steps for you and make sure, again, that you are happy, that you go into this and that you thrive and that you're in a placement that you love and a city that you love. Because, you are spending 40 hours in this place and you're also living in the city. So we really want to know your thoughts and your feelings about all of this. And that is why there's a text box. The more you say, the more it helps us get you into that right place. Because in 6 months, we don't want you saying you found another opportunity that would break our hearts and break these agencies' hearts. But then also in a year, and maybe it is, January or February of your JV year, and you're like, I am just really homesick and I didn't ever really want to go to Kansas City. And now I'm in Kansas City and I like want to move home. And, that would really break our hearts too. And so we really, truly want you to thrive in your position, thrive in the city that you're in the community that you're in. And being able to tell us all these things is really helpful. We know that there are some really splashy, exciting, spicy roles and cities out there you could live in. But there's also very similar placements in some places like Mobile, Alabama, or Kansas City, or Austin, that maybe aren't as spicy as LA or Boston or New York, but we've got great opportunities for you there too. So as much as you're going through this process and figuring it out, please be, as we say, episodically available. Maybe go to where maybe you're being called in a different way, in a new way that you might not have in the past. So that's all I have for you today. If you have more questions, please reach out. You do have some recruiters that are there for you, Kara, Casey, Julia, and myself. Please reach out to us. You can reach out directly to recruiting@judgmentvolunteers.org. You could also reach out to the admissions email as well. But we are so excited that you're in this process with us. We are so excited to have you here to be a judge volunteer. And we are here to help you with every next step from the application to the orientation that you will have in August. So thanks again for listening. Hope it was helpful, and best of luck to you all.